Well, I don't tend to do prequels. I don't tend to go back. I think if there's a nice mystery in a book, it shows that it worked, right? And the worst thing to do sometimes is to explain something that was better left unexplained. So I very much doubt you'll ever find out exactly what went on in Barcelona. But maybe new horrific happenings will take place in Barcelona further down the road. I think it can do, yeah. I mean, I think fantasy at its best says something about real life. I think characters have to feel like they're real people in some way, even if they're very intense and very larger than life. And so I suppose the central question of the Devils is, who are the monsters in this story? Is it the outsiders who are shunned and seen as monsters? Or is it those in power who would make tools out of them? Yeah, I think mostly. I mean, yeah, to me, I was looking for an alternative to the cross, right? So it didn't feel too similar to normal life. And, the cross comes from crucifixion, obviously, the crucifixion of Jesus. And so in this world, thinking of alternative, it had to be something graphic, something simple. I mean, a cross is about as simple a form as you can have. As simple, a square, a triangle, a circle obviously seemed like a classic form, a classic shape that could be on top of an altar, worn round someone's neck, on the shield of a knight, would fit in all those places. And the alternative to crucifixion, being broken on the wheel, is a kind of a classic medieval, pre-medieval punishment, and so that seemed to fit very nicely, the Saviour broken on the wheel, and the wheel or the circle becoming the symbol of the religion. The last time I was with Jay, we were spending too much time getting drunk to discuss similarities or differences in the book.
Discuss today, Philan.
Yeah. At Philan, it may well come up. You never know. I mean, it's lovely that anyone does admire me. I wouldn't encourage that necessarily. I think people respond to something that feels truthful, that feels authentic. And that's what I try to do. I try to be honest when I'm writing. I try to ask myself, how would I really feel in this situation? How would someone really behave? My mother gave me this piece of advice very early on when I was writing. She read something I'd written, and I'd use some elevated metaphor, like the sky was like a sable cloth scattered with diamonds, something like that. And she said, is the sky like a sable cloth? Or is that just an easy cliche, You've got to always ask yourself, is this true? Because every time something that feels false comes up in a book, it kind of jars the reader, and it jars their sense of being in safe hands, their sense that this is real, that this is truthful. And so if you're always asking yourself, is it true, hopefully that will keep the reader interested, even if something is very familiar, even if the setting is very cliched. If there's an authenticity there, that keeps it fascinating. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I took my lead from Shakespeare, right, which is always good. In Hamlet, they make a joke about Hamlet being sent to England and saying he won't be noticed because they're all devils there, right? So that was kind of on my mind a little bit, Shakespeare making the same kind of gag. If Shakespeare did it, you can be reasonably sure it can work for me. But, I think there's a sort of love-hate relationship between England and Europe, and always has been, and between England and Scotland and England and Wales and England and all kinds of other parts of the world. So most people can enjoy a joke at the expense of the English, and no one more than the English. So I think part of the the fun of writing in a version of Europe is that you can make jokes about England, about Germany, about Naples, about France, and everyone kind of has an idea of what you're talking about. I read a review the other day where someone said, there's so many jokes about England, the author must be Scottish. But I think most English people have a pretty good sense of humour about their own Englishness. You know, part of being English is to have that self-deprecating humour with any luck. So I'm not that interested in people who take themselves so seriously they're upset about the odd joke here or there. I'd be more worried about probably Catholic people being offended, or other, you know, there's many things that could potentially cause offence here. I'm never wanting or aiming to cause offence, but I've been surprised how little that's come up, actually. Generally speaking, people seem to, you know, be pretty willing to accept it as it is. Not that much. I mean, it's been mentioned a couple of times, but more, I think, by people who've heard the concept than people who've necessarily read the book and seen how it works. I suppose, you know, the idea was to look at how we see the other and the alien and the terrifying external threat that Europe has often been obsessed with throughout history. The Goths, the Huns, the Mongols, there was always something boiling out off the edge of the map to cause terror, an alien kind of force. And so the elves are a sort of truly alien example of that in this book. And obviously, within Europe, within the church, they're the ultimate horror, the ultimate enemy. But the only elf we actually meet in the book is probably the nicest character there, in fact. So I suppose the suggestion is already there that the propaganda might not be entirely true, and hopefully we'll get to dig into that a little more as we go. Yeah, I suppose the thing I respond to as a reader is strong characters. You know, that's what I want in a book. If the characters aren't interesting, a book's never going to be interesting to me, really, regardless of the plot or the setting or the language. Whereas if the characters are great, they can sit in a room staring at wallpaper and it can remain fascinating. So that, as a writer, what I try to do is to give the reader some strong characters to get their teeth into. I want the reader to feel like they're in conversation with a set of really vivid, really different, multi-layered, flawed, real people with a kind of very individual way of expressing themselves. And that's something that sometimes happens quite quickly when I try and write from their point of view. And sometimes it can take the whole book to realise what I need and what they need to be like. And it's about finding things that work and then applying them as I go through. But a lot of it's revision, cutting, reworking, editing. When I finish a book, that's when I kind of think, okay, now the work begins. I can roll my sleeves up and start to rearrange, to cut, to rethink. And that's when a lot of the voices emerge more distinctly. I can kind of fine-tune them and refine them and hopefully make them as distinct as I can. Yeah. I mean, so Balthazar's North African, so I guess kind of Arab, probably. I mean, it's a bit vague. I leave those things slightly vague. Baptiste is kind of probably black, Arab, not white anyway. So there's a range of different types in there for sure. I mean, if you're working in the Mediterranean world, the ruin of the Roman Empire, as it would have been, was a melting pot of all kinds of different cultures. The Romans didn't particularly distinguish. If you swore fealty to Rome, you were Roman, regardless. They didn't really care. They didn't see that as being that important. So I suppose it's similar in this world. But part of the joy of books and being a writer is the reader is always a participant, you know, and every reader brings their own preoccupations, their own ideas, and every reader has their own reading of the book, in a sense. It's an interaction between reader and writer each time. When you watch an adaptation, it kind of puts a big boot on your idea of a book. You know, I can't remember what Gandalf looked like before Ian McKellen. Now he is Ian McKellen always, yeah? So I guess one of the beauties of books is that you throw your ideas open for the reader to have their version of. And yeah, I mean, I'm co-writing with James Cameron in theory. That is the plan, and I've already started work on it, which will be interesting. But you've got to be aware when you decide to work in TV or film and the visual medium, it's different, you know. And an adaptation is exactly that. You change what you need to change to translate the essence of a book in a film. In books, you have all kinds of tools that you don't have on film. Mostly the internal voice. You know, you can really hear the thoughts of the character. You can communicate directly to the reader. You can, as a narrator and as an author, you can have authorial asides and things you sum up very quickly. You could have whole careers of someone that you refer to in a paragraph. So there's a lot of flexibility there. On film, you don't necessarily have those tools, but you have the ability of an actor to raise one eyebrow and convey a set of emotions that might take pages of text to do. You have editing, you have montage, you have all kinds of other tools. And so when you adapt, you need to select slightly different tools and render things in a different way. And I think if you're a writer adapting your own stuff, you have to come at it from first principles, have no sacred cows, and really be willing to smash it up a little bit to make the best film, you know. I mean, yeah, there's always that concern, but I suppose the whole joy of doing TV and film as opposed to books is that it's an ensemble piece, you know. You're inevitably involved with a lot of other artists, with directors, with costume designers, with the actors, obviously, editors, cameramen, all bringing their own expertise to the project, you know. I don't really know what Jakob of Thorn's clothes look like in the book. A vague idea. A costume designer will come in and render that in incredible, beautiful detail and amaze you with everything they communicate through the costumes, a hugely vital part of the film. There's so much more work that has to be done to make a film work, and so you have to let part of it go. You know, it's no longer your thing, it's something you're welcoming a whole set of other creatives into. There is no securing, you know, it's always a crapshoot, there's always things that can go wrong, there's a lot of money involved, it would inevitably have to be a big film, there's no cheap version of this. So with a big project like that, there's no certainties whatever, even with someone like James Cameron, who obviously is right up at the very top and, you know, can command a lot of control, can attract a lot of funding, is very commercially and creatively successful. There's no certainties. You cross your fingers, you do the best you can with the script, and then you hope. Yeah. The next book has a lot of witches. It's witch-based. There's a witch hunt going on, and the witch hunt succeeds, over-succeeds, some would say. And there's also a talking cat. You can't go wrong with a talking cat, I find. And there's a girl who is possessed by various spirits, including a talking beehive and various others. So there's always more stuff to do and more stuff to explore, I find. And I'm sure the book after that will feature all kinds of other weird and wonderful things also. I think they would have trouble getting to me through the crowds of people trying to get a photo, because that has been unbelievable this year. You know, if I stop and have a photo with one person, by the time they've taken the photo, there'll be 10 more people there wanting a photo. So, on the basis that my characters could actually discover me, well, I think Baptiste would know where to go. She'd know all the best places, so she'd certainly be good to have with you. Vigo would be a lot of fun, I think. And it would be nice to have Sonny, helping out invisibly to smooth the path and arrange everything just the way you need it. So it'd be nice to have the group. I think they work nicely as a group. I'd have them all in. Balthazar might clash with me. They're quite similar personalities. Too pompous, exaggerated, over-the-top, self-obsessed intellectuals in a group is one too many. Yeah, there's never a bad time for poo jokes, is my experience. The readers may feel that I've kind of gone overboard there, but, give me my head. Ooh. The menace that a group of authors could confront together.
Well, with your monsters.
With your monsters?
With your monsters, yeah.
I'm not sure what that'd be. Overlong books, too short books, merchandise running out of the Dragonsteel tent. Oh, I hear they had some stuff from China stuck in customs, so perhaps we could break that stuff out from the customs house and bring it to the hungry fans in the villas. Well, I don't know if they remind me that directly, but Jay Kristoff is a big man. Without a doubt, he's a very, very large man.
It's a werewolf.
Yeah, he seems of a different scale. And funny enough, when you meet him and you're talking to him, you don't really get that feeling. But when you see a photograph of you with him, everyone seems like they're seen through a kind of trick photography and half the size. So, certainly he's a larger-than-life individual. Yeah, he's certainly an influence. I read his stuff when he first started publishing the Discworld books. I was, I suppose, in my teens when The Colour of Magic first came out. And yeah, there were definitely books that I read at the time. I suppose at that time, fantasy tended to be either, satire and jokes. Lord of the Rings was another one, piss take of fantasy. Or it was very solemn and serious and mythic in the kind of Tolkien mould. And I've always liked to split the difference. I think things that are funny can also be serious. And Pratchett's best stuff, perhaps later in his career, was when he was really taking aim at very serious subjects, but using that humour and that satire to, come at things that were quite serious, the nature of power, government, corruption, hypocrisy. And so I guess I like to do the same if I can, to tackle some serious subjects with a humorous lens if I can. The kind of pace of it, the friendliness of it, it doesn't demand a huge amount of time from you. You have plenty of time to talk to other writers and sit down in bars and cafes, and I've met more English writers here than I have in England. Every year there's a different set of writers and you get the chance to meet interesting people, listen to some of them talk about their work, and of course to, meet readers, hugely kind of engaged and excited readers. You get treated here like a star in a way that, I don't think you do anywhere else. People are excited to see you, to have photos with you. And this year it feels like it's taken, another huge kind of leap forward, really. Obviously, I was here the first year. I had about 25 people in the auditorium, I think, and I was very glad to have that many. And over time it's kind of grown rapidly. We did a little impromptu signing last night just to take the pressure off the weekend, hoping to get a few people. There were 700 people there, and it has become a big, big thing. And it's really exciting to, have been involved right from the start and seen it grow year on year to what it's become. Yeah, which is great, I don't know what the upper limit is. Obviously, Brandon's here. When he was last here, 2019, I think. I saw him sign on 3 days and he had 3 massive queues every day. Now I'm getting queues of a similar sort of size, and he obviously is now at a point where everything's got to be ticketed. He can't just throw the doors open because they get a tsunami of people kind of coming through. when they opened their tent selling merch and stuff, the Dragonsteel guys, there was a queue of hundreds of people coming through town before the festival even began. And so the excitement is kind of gigantic. And I suppose you need to manage that change from something that's informal, that's fun, where you get a couple of minutes to talk to each person, to where you can just dash off a signature, take a photo next, and it's a different mood. It's a shame you lose something, but inevitable as it grows and becomes more popular.